The Mysterious Old Radio Listening Society podcast.
Welcome to the Mysterious Old Radio Listening Society, a podcast dedicated to suspense, crime, and horror stories from the golden age of radio. I'm Eric.
I'm Tim.
And I'm Joshua.
We love mysterious old-time radio stories, but do they stand the test of time? That's what we're here to find out.
Today we return to the listener library for a suggestion from our mysterious listener, Sean. Sean writes, I was listening to your Lights Out Catwife episode this morning and was reminded of another episode that had a similar weird feel, The Queen of the Cats. I think it appeared on a couple different shows, but The Mysterious Traveler is the one I've heard. I would love to hear your thoughts on it, even if it isn't a classic.
The Mysterious Traveler ran for 9 years on the Mutual Broadcasting Network from December 1943 to September 1952. The show was created, written, and directed by Robert Arthur and David Kogan. The duo utilized a variety of genres, including horror, crime, and science fiction. Listeners tuned in each week, never sure what kind of story the Mysterious Traveler would tell.
Each episode opened with the mournful wail of a distant train whistle, followed by the sardonic voice of the mysterious traveler, who narrated each story as if he were sharing it with a fellow passenger on the train. The Mysterious Traveler was played by radio veteran Maurice Tarplin, who also played Inspector Faraday on Boston Blackie, and the titular host on The Strange Dr. Weird.
As Sean mentioned in his email, The Queen of the Cats was performed twice on The Mysterious Traveler and once more on another Arthur and Kogan series, The Sealed Book. The scripts for The Sealed Book were all recycled from The Mysterious Traveler, but carefully chosen by Arthur and Kogan to create a specific effect. Author Richard J. Hand described The Sealed Book as consciously different from The Mysterious Traveler in that it tended to revel in the heightened melodrama of plot and performance rather than focus on the straight and generally understated journeys listeners shared with The Mysterious Traveler. This gives us a little hint of what to expect from today's story.
And now, let's listen to The Queen of the Cats from The Mysterious Traveler, originally broadcast July 2nd, 1944.
It's late at night, and a chill has set in. You're alone, and the only light you see is coming from an antique radio. Listen to the sounds coming from the speaker, listen to the music, and listen to the voices.
The Mysterious Traveler.
This is the Mysterious Traveler, inviting you to join me on another journey into the realm of the strange and terrifying. I hope you will enjoy this little trip, that it will thrill you a little and chill you a little. So settle back, get a good grip on your nerves. Where are we going? We're going to delve into the life of a frightened man in a tale titled The Queen of the Cats. Some years ago, when I was practicing medicine, I was called upon by a young girl of 22 or so. As she was shown into my office, I could see that she was having a difficult time suppressing her agitation. Her lips trembled as she spoke.
Dr. Smith, my name is Jane Elliott. I have an appointment with you.
Yes, Miss Elliott. Won't you be seated, please?
Thank you.
Now, what seems to be the trouble, Miss Elliott? You're trembling, and you don't look well at all.
I'm not ill, Doctor. It's Chris Arnold, my fiancé. Oh, Doctor, you've got to help him. If you don't, something terrible will happen.
Well, I'll do everything I can, Miss Elliott. Now, tell me what's wrong.
I don't know what's wrong. All I know is that Chris is frightened. He's in deadly fear of something.
Has he told you what it is that frightens him?
No, I've questioned him countless times, but he refuses to tell me.
I see. Where is your fiancé now?
At his home, Brookfield Manor. Oh, Doctor, I know it's late, but won't you come with me and see Chris? He needs help desperately.
There, Miss Elliot. You mustn't cry. Of course I'll come with you. And I'll do what I can.
Who is it?
Chris, it's Jane.
Just a minute. Jane, I've asked you before not to... Who's he?
Darling, this is Dr. Smith. Doctor, this is my fiancé, Chris Arnold.
How do you do, Mr. Arnold?
Why the devil did you bring him? I don't need a doctor.
Please, darling, I just couldn't stand
Forgive me,
to see
Mr.
you.
Arnold, but it's obvious to the most untrained eye you do need a doctor.
Please, Chris, tell the doctor what you're afraid of.
I'm not afraid of anything.
Oh, darling, please tell him, please. You can't go on this way.
Yes, you're right. I can't go on this way. If I don't tell someone, I'll go mad.
Believe me, Mr. Arnold, you'll feel much better once you've talked your fears out. Now, suppose you start from the beginning and tell me everything.
All right, Doctor. Come on in. I suppose it all began 2 years ago at a party Jane and I were invited to.
Isn't this a wonderful party?
The only thing wonderful about it is you.
Oh, Chris, people are watching.
Fine thing when a man can't kiss his best girl in public. What's this generation coming to, anyway?
At Miss Tyndall's school, we were taught a young lady never kisses a man in public.
Miss Tyndall is setting romance back 50 years. Who are you looking for, anyway?
Rana Farouk. My roommate is at Miss Tyndall's.
Oh, yeah, she's the Egyptian girl you were telling me about.
Yes, I want you to meet her. Only you better not fall in love with her as every other man does.
Sounds as though she's a second Cleopatra.
Men just can't seem to be able to resist her.
Well, I'm curious to see this siren of the Nile.
Oh, there she is, Chris. Come on.
So that's Rana. No wonder men can't resist her.
Hello, Jane. I've missed you.
Rana, this is Chris Arnold. Chris, this is Rana Farouk.
Hello, Chris.
Hello, Rana.
Oh, look, there's Miss Tyndall waving to me. Excuse me, won't you?
Of course, Jane.
I'll be back in a minute.
You know, Chris, at Miss Tyndall's, the first thing I'd see in the morning when I got up, and the last thing before I went to bed was your picture. And I always knew that someday we should meet. And now we have. Why are you staring at me like that? Aren't you going to say anything?
I prefer just to look. Even now, Doctor, 2 years after our first meeting, I find it difficult to describe how beautiful Rana was. She had lustrous black hair that came down to her shoulders and sparkling green eyes that bewitched you. No words can do her beauty justice. I was captivated the moment I saw her.
I see. What happened after that first meeting?
Rana seemed also attracted to me. After that night, we saw each other constantly.
You did?
Nothing seemed to matter to me when I was with her. It made me indescribably happy to learn she felt the same way. A month after we'd met, we were married.
Please go on, Mr. Arnold.
After we were married, we took an apartment in town. In the months that followed, I began to see Rana not as the image I'd been infatuated with, but as she really was. Vain, selfish, and possessive. It was a possessiveness verging on madness. She couldn't bear to have me out of her sight, and when I was, upon my return, there would be questions, countless questions. I began to dread seeing her. And then there were the cats.
The cats?
Yes. She had an insane passion for them.
Yes, when Rana and I were at school together, Doctor, she always had a few cats around. She said that she couldn't live without
The apartment
them.
was always full of cats. She'd sit for hours stroking them, whispering to them until I felt I'd go mad. Life became a nightmare for me, a nightmare full of cats. And Rana asking questions, endless questions. One day, I realized I couldn't go on living with her any longer. That our marriage had been a mistake. I decided to tell her about it that very evening. Yeah, come in, Rana.
Of course, dear.
Rana, there's something important I want to talk to you
Oh,
about.
please, Chris, there's so little time just now. We can talk later after the party.
But, Rana, this is important. I think that...
Darling, whatever you have to say can wait. Now, please hurry.
But... Well, all right. We'll discuss what I have to say later.
Chris, when I called you at the office this afternoon, why didn't you tell me that you had had lunch with Mary Walker?
What? How did you know I had lunch with her?
Oh, a friend told me.
A friend? Who was it?
What is it, my beauty? What are you trying to say?
Rana, put that cat down and answer me. Who was the friend that told you I had lunch with Mary Walker?
You have never met her, darling.
How is it that you always know what I've been doing, whom I've been seeing? It's as though you have people spying on me.
Chris, what a thing to say. Now, please hurry or we'll be late.
There's something strange about the way you always know what I've been doing. Sometimes I suspect...
Chris, look out. You've stepped on Sabina's tail.
I'm sorry, but I didn't see it.
I've asked you before to be more careful. Poor Sabina. Are you all right now, my beauty?
If there weren't so many cats underfoot, I wouldn't have stepped on her. Why must you have 5 cats around?
Because I love cats. They're beautiful, sacred. Thousands of years ago, my ancestors worshipped cats. And the great cat god is Sekhmet. On the river Nile, close by the ancient city of Hamadi, where I was born, are the graves of 100,000 sacred cats. They have been mummified and buried with reverence.
Rana, I can't go on like this anymore.
My darling, what do you mean?
I feel our marriage was a mistake. I want a divorce.
Chris, you can't be serious.
But I am.
I love you, Chris, and I won't give you up. You're mine, darling. You always will be. Nothing shall ever separate us.
Would you care for a cocktail, sir?
No, thank you.
Well, even if you won't have one, Mr. Arnold, I will.
Jane, it's good to see you again. Just let me look at you.
Chris, you're not looking well at all. Are you all right?
I am now. Jane, can't we go someplace and talk? What about the terrace?
All right, Chris.
Here, this door opens onto it. Yeah, this is much better. It's been quite some time since we've seen each other, hasn't it?
Yes, the last time we saw each other was the night that...
The night that I met Rana.
Yes. How is Rana, Chris?
Oh, she's fine. Jane, I've made such a mess out of everything. I was a fool to have married her.
Please, Chris, you mustn't talk like that.
But I was a fool, Jane. Mistaking infatuation for love. Can you ever forgive me for the way I behaved toward you?
There's nothing to forgive, Chris.
Well, Jane, this is a surprise.
Rana.
Hello, Rana.
Really, Jane, the way you've avoided calling on us, I half suspect you are still in love with Chris.
Rana, you had no right to talk to her like that.
Please, Chris, I'm afraid I'll have to be leaving. It's getting quite late. Good night.
Good night, Jane.
I hope I didn't interrupt anything by coming out here so unexpectedly, Chris.
Yes, Rana, you did. I was about to tell Jane that I love her, and that I always will.
I suppose that's why you asked me for a divorce. You've been secretly seeing her.
Secretly seeing her? Is it possible for me to see anyone or do anything secretly without your knowing about it?
No, you are quite right. It is not possible. I know everything you do. So I would forget Jane if I were you.
Rana, how can you possibly want me? Knowing how I feel about Jane. You've got to give me a divorce.
I'll never give you a divorce. Never. You hear? You're mine. You always will be.
Yes? Well, what's to prevent me from leaving you?
Wherever you go, Chris, I'll follow. If I can't have you, no one else ever will. Remember, Chris, you're mine. You always will be.
I can still see her, Doctor. As she stood there screaming at me. Remember, Chris, you're mine and you always will be. It was a shock to suddenly realize that she looked like a cat, an angry cat. Her green eyes, cold and murderous. her long nails digging into my arms, her body tense. For a moment, I thought she was going to scratch my eyes out.
Yes, Rana did look like that when she was in a rage.
What happened after that night, Mr. Arnold?
I stopped speaking to Rana. We lived in the same apartment, but that was all. Weeks passed, and Rana waited for me to come around, as she felt certain I would.
Yes.
She had all the patience of a cat playing with a mouse. But when a month had passed and I still refused to talk to her, she made an attempt to win me back. It happened one night as we were driving to this house. Why are you slowing down, Rana?
I want to talk to you, Chris, and I can't talk to you while I'm driving.
There's no point in your stopping. We have nothing to say to each other.
Oh, but we do, darling. Chris, we could be so happy together if you wanted to. You know how much I love you.
It's a possessive love that smothers me to death.
Chris, you know that isn't true. I could make you happy if you'd only let me. Oh, please don't turn away from me, Chris. I'll do anything to make you happy. Anything.
Anything? And you can give me a divorce.
So you're still thinking of her, hoping I'll give you a divorce so you can marry her. Well, I won't. Do you hear? I won't.
I think we'd better be moving along.
Chris, you haven't any right to treat me like this. I'm your wife.
Only in the eyes of the law, not in my eyes.
I hate you. I hate you!
You cat! You almost took out my eyes with those claws of yours.
I will scratch your eyes out before I let any other woman have you. You're mine. You always will be.
Perhaps this will bring you to your senses. Slide over. I'll drive.
Very well, Chris. You think you've beaten me, Chris. But you haven't. In the end, you'll come crawling to me. It may take a year, 2 years, 5 years. But I can wait.
I'll never come crawling to you. Never.
But you will, Chris. Jane knows I'll never give you your freedom. In time, she'll marry. And when she does, all the heart will be gone out of you. Then you'll be mine.
That'll never happen.
But it will, Chris. And deep down in your heart, you know I'm right. Jane will never be yours. I'll see to that.
You have everything planned perfectly, Rana, don't you? But I have one way of escape from you that you've never thought of.
Really? And what way is that?
I can escape through death.
Death?
Yes, Rana. If I should fail to take the curve 100 yards ahead, we'd plunge off the side of this mountain.
Chris, you would.
Why not, Rana? You've shown me there's nothing to live for. This at least is a clean way out.
No! Chris, don't!
When I drove the car over the side of the mountain, Doctor, I thought Rana and I were going to our deaths. But fate decreed otherwise. When I recovered consciousness 48 hours later in a hospital, I learned it was only Rana who died.
Yes, I recall reading about it in the papers. It was a miracle that you survived.
Yes. For weeks, they despaired of saving me. But at the end of 8 months, I walked out of that hospital. The police believed my story that it was an accident. And I was free to begin a new life. It was just a week after I was discharged from the hospital that I ran into Jane.
Chris! Oh, Chris, it's you.
Janie, you always seem to pop up just when I need you most.
Chris, you look so much older. Are you all right?
And my heart isn't any too good, but otherwise I'm fine. And seeing you again is just what I need to put me on my feet.
These past months must have been so difficult for you.
I don't want to look back to the past, Jane, but only to the future. The future I once hoped we'd share, and still do. 2 months ago, Doctor, Jane and I became engaged. It was just about that time that I first began to notice that everywhere I went, there always seemed to be a cat following me.
Are you sure you weren't imagining it, Mr. Arnold?
At first, I thought it was my imagination. But a week after Jane and I became engaged, I was certain I was being followed.
Tell me, Mr. Arnold, was it always the same cat that followed you?
No. One day it'd be one cat, and another day a different one. Oh, I know you must think I'm mad, Doctor. And at the time I felt I was going mad. That is, until that night.
What night, Mr. Arnold?
The night I saw her. It happened in this very room 6 weeks ago. I had great difficulty in falling asleep that night. Suddenly, the silence was broken by the faint crying of a cat. The crying grew louder and louder. I lay in the darkness listening, realizing that the cat crying was real, living, and in my room. I could feel my heart pounding as I sat up in bed and looked about my darkened room. And then suddenly I saw her. 2 burning green eyes in the darkness. There was no mistaking those eyes. They were Rana's. I stared into those eyes for what seemed like hours. Then, as though listening to a stranger's voice, I heard myself speak. Rana. It is you, Rana, isn't it? Yes. I'd recognize those green eyes anywhere. So you've come back, and in the form I've always thought of you, as a cat. I know why you've come back. It's because of Jane. You always said that if you couldn't have me, no one else could. That I was yours, and always would be. Well, you're wrong, do you hear? Jane and I are going to be married. You came between us once, but you aren't going to this time. I will marry you, and there's nothing you can do to stop me. You fiend! Trying to scratch my eyes out. Well, we'll see about that. There. Perhaps that'll show you that nothing you can do will stop me from marrying her. I know that all those cats that were following me, spying on me, were doing so under your orders. You're the queen of the cats. Yes, I should have known. No wonder you always knew where I'd been, who I'd seen. You had your cats spying on me even then. Well, even if you are the queen of the cats, you can't prevent me from marrying Jane. That's a bullet between those green eyes of yours is what's needed. I emptied the gun at her, Doctor, and then turned on the lights. There was no sign of her. She'd vanished. All that I found were those 6 bullet holes in the wall.
Tell me, Mr. Arnold, isn't it possible that you only dreamed all that? That actually you fired the gun in your sleep and the shots themselves wakened you?
I tried to tell myself that, Doctor. But during the nights that followed, I knew it was not a dream. For night after night, she appeared in my room. I'd lie awake, waiting to hear her footsteps, her voice. And when she would appear, I'd plead with her to leave me alone. But she'd only stare at me with those burning green eyes, waiting. I knew she'd never leave me alone as long as I intended to marry Jane. Finally, I could stand it no longer, and I went to see Jane.
Chris, this is a surprise. Come in, darling.
Thank you, Jane.
Oh, well, where have you been keeping yourself this past week? I was beginning to believe I was being jilted.
Jane, there's something I want to ask you.
Yes, Chris, of course. What is it?
I know we set our wedding for next week. But couldn't we put it off for a while? Just a little while.
Darling, what is it? There's something wrong. I know there is. Please tell me.
I wish I could, but I can't. Please, Jane, just have faith in me. You know I wouldn't postpone our marriage if I could possibly help it.
All right, Chris, I do have faith in you. We'll consider our marriage postponed for the time being. The night I put off my marriage to Jane, Doctor, was the first night that Rana didn't appear. And the first night in a week that I'd been able to sleep.
And you think, Mr. Arnold, that she didn't appear again because you would postpone your marriage to Jane?
I know it. Weeks went by, weeks in which I was able to sleep soundly without being awakened by her. I came to think that perhaps it had all been part of a horrible nightmare, and that I was over it at last. A week ago, I asked Jane to set the date for our wedding. She did so. And that same day, we took out a marriage license. But that night, she appeared again. Her eyes shining in the dark. murders. She knew about the license. That's why she returned.
And you've seen her again?
Yes, every night. She just keeps staring at me with those green eyes, waiting. She's determined not to give me any rest. I tell myself that I mustn't be afraid, but I keep hearing her voice over and over. If I can't have you, no one else will. You're mine, and you always will be.
Oh, Chris, darling, I wish I had known all this before.
You feel, Mr. Arnold, that somehow she'll prevent you from marrying Jane, huh?
I know I sound mad, but I do. I have a feeling something horrible will happen if I attempt to marry her.
Do you still have the marriage license?
Yes. Why do you ask?
Mr. Arnold, you've reached a crisis in your life. You're faced with fears that are threatening to overwhelm your sanity. The only way for you to challenge your fears is to go through with your marriage to Jane now. Tonight.
Tonight?
Yes. It's quite late, but I'm sure a friend of mine who's a judge will marry you.
You get married tonight?
If you hesitate, you're lost. Your only chance is to face your fears.
All right, Doctor. All right. Jane, will you marry me tonight?
Oh, yes, Chris. Yes.
I'm sorry to get you up in the middle of the night, Judge, but for reasons I can't explain, it's important that these two be married tonight.
That's quite all right, Doc. Always glad to oblige a friend. Have you got the license and the ring, young man?
Yes, sir. Here's the license and the ring.
Now, young man, if you'll take a right hand. That's it. Now, shall I give you the long ceremony or the short one?
The short one, please.
Just as you say, young lady. This is the shortest one I've got. Do you, Jane Elliott, take this man to be your lawful wedded husband, to love, honor, and obey as long as ye both shall live?
I do.
Do you, Christopher Arnold, take this woman to be your lawful wedded wife, to love, honor, and cherish as long as you both shall live?
It's she. It's Rana.
Chris, please, it's only a black cat. You mustn't pay any attention to it.
Of course not. Now,
It's Rana, I tell you. Look at her eyes. I told you she was trying to prevent my marrying Jane. Well, I'll get rid of her once and for all.
Chris, what are you doing with that gun? Put it...
She got away. Well, wherever she's gone, I'll find her and kill her.
Chris, come back! Oh, Doctor, where can he be?
Now, Jane, he can't be far off. We'll find him.
Oh,
Listen.
Doctor, that must be Chris firing that gun.
Come on. Those shots came from close by.
Hurry!
We better take it easy now, Doc. It's pretty dark out here.
Wait a moment now. Light my cigarette lighter.
Doc! Look, a dead cat!
Yes. It was shot through the head.
Say, look. Here's another one that's been shot to death.
Neither one of them is the black cat.
Say, Doc, isn't that a body over there?
Chris.
No, Jane, you stay with the judge while I look.
All right, Doctor.
There, miss. You mustn't cry.
This never would have happened if I hadn't agreed to marry him. He was afraid. So afraid.
Doc, is it Arnold?
Yes. Yes, it's he.
He's dead, isn't he? I can see it in your face.
Yes, Jane. He's dead.
But, Doc, what happened to him?
He's been clawed to bits, as if by hundreds of cats. And most horrible of all, his eyes have been scratched out. This is the mysterious traveler again. Have you enjoyed our little trip into the life, or should I say, death of a frightened man? Strangely enough, 2 days later, at Chris Arnold's funeral, just as the coffin was being lowered into the grave, the mourners suddenly noticed a black cat with green eyes sitting on the edge of the grave, quietly licking its paws. By the way, I trust you haven't a cat in your home, particularly a black one. I once knew a woman, she's dead now, who had a... Oh, you're getting off at the next stop, huh? I'm sorry. Perhaps you'll join me again soon. I take this same train every week at the same time.
You have just heard Chapter 31 of The Mysterious Traveler, a series of dramas of the strange and terrifying. In today's story, Queen of the Cats, Stutz Cotsworth played Chris, Sarah Burton played Rana, and Sandra Gould played Jane. The Mysterious Traveler is written by Bob Arthur and David Cogan, and original music was played by Doc Whipple. The entire production was under the direction of Jock McGregor. Listen next week to a tale titled
Broadway, Here I Come.
Another Tale of the Mysterious Traveler. The Mysterious Traveler is presented by WOR Mutual from the WOR Studios in New York. It is presented over most of these stations every Sunday afternoon at 3:30.
This is Mutual.
That was The Queen of the Cats from The Mysterious Traveler here on the Mysterious Old Radio Listening Society podcast. Once again, I'm Aaron.
I'm Tim.
And I'm Joshua.
That was a listener request coming to us from Sean, who was inspired to suggest that to us after listening to Lights Out Catwife, which is one of our favorite episodes for all the wrong reasons, and a frequent running gag here on the podcast. But Sean, thank you so much for bringing this to our attention.
When he emailed us, I just kicked myself for not doing this as a double feature with Catwife.
Yeah.
Because I'd heard it before, and I went, oh.
First of all, Joshua sent the wrong one. You sent which version? The
sealed book.
Sealed book
version. Yeah.
And I didn't listen to that. I was like, I haven't gotten around to it yet, so no harm, no foul. But then I downloaded the one you sent, and I was like, great, I'll listen to it. And then for some reason, I couldn't get it to play when I needed to change the device I was listening on. So I just went to YouTube and
I listened to the other Mysterious Traveler,
right,
which is different in a lot of significant ways.
Which is a really interesting talking point.
I listened to both of them too.
Right. So I went, this is the wrong one. I listened all the way through. I listened to the right one, and I got fascinated with the choices in what was left in and what was taken out and what was added.
I chose the first one for two reasons. Mm-hmm. One, I love it in the early Mysterious Traveler episodes when the Mysterious Traveler himself becomes a part of the story.
Right.
In the one they did later, the Doctor is a different character completely and not the Mysterious Traveler. And just the nerd in me went, I love it when he's in the story. Also, the second time they recorded it, they attempted to clarify some things at the end with hilarious results. Yeah. So I thought this was more fair to the episode because I think they shot themselves in the foot in the second episode. To tell Tim and our listeners who haven't heard both, in the end of the second version, just to clarify things like where the cat comes from that disturbs their wedding with the judge, the judge says, that's just my black cat, Lucifer. Why are you so nervous? And you're like, what? He's an occult judge? What's going on? And then the best one, are you thinking what I'm thinking, when he shoots at the cat?
Nope.
Oh, because he has this line of dialogue in the second one, not the one we listened to. Right. He takes a pot shot at the cat at their wedding, And these guys are so comically nonchalant about gunfire, but that's another discussion.
Yes.
But in the second version, he goes, "This time I won't miss. Blam, 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 blam. Oh, I missed." I was listening to it on my bike, and I almost fell off my bike laughing when I heard that.
And he wasn't riding his bike.
I wasn't.
Just on it.
I was just sitting there.
Here's the interesting thing that I found in the second one is giving more detail when they go to his house in the first place about where he lives. Like they're walking through the house and it's gigantic and they're talking about all the rooms and all the servants. He fired them all. And then some weird line that doesn't need to be in there that is, except for the cook. He's here. But he keeps to himself, so don't mind him.
So we didn't cast him.
Right. Like they're saying to the audience, not a red herring, not a thing, just there's a cook here, but just don't think about it.
Some really strange changes.
Imagining the conversation. Well, then how does he get food?
Right.
All right, well, just say that he has a cook. Right.
Right, exactly. Repeat to yourself, it's just a show. You should really just relax.
We should probably concentrate on the one we did listen to, but despite Sean's warnings, we became terribly confused and listened to like 3 different versions of this show. It's enough that you know that.
Yeah, let's talk about this one. This is something that really pains me to do, and I hate this about our podcast. I have this request, and then I got to say, Sean, I hate your request.
But in all fairness, it was not requested as a favorite or a classic, but as an interesting companion to Catwife. And I do think it's worth contrasting and comparing a little with Catwife. There's some real Catwife moments in here, as in it sounds like they're echoing lines from Catwife. So it had to be on their minds, as it's on everyone's minds who's ever heard Catwife. You can't get it out of your mind.
Nothing in this is interesting. Nothing really happens. If it's going to be on the supernatural side, go. But really, this became about an over-controlling crazy cat lady who then apparently comes back to life as a cat. I get it. I'm sorry. It just didn't grab me, man.
I started out there initially questioning, why do we need 3 layers of introduction to this story? Why did this woman, I don't want you to fall in love with my roommate. Oh, I'm going to go. You talk to my roommate.
Oh, you fell in love.
No.
We're going to talk about
the
Jane.
nature of their relationship is
bizarre.
Jane. Wow, you're a trooper. Jane, you are a forgiving and really overly trusting. The red flags, Jane, go. You're going to hang with this guy, are you? There's 8 moments where you say, Jane, run.
Yeah. So, and they got to the, all right, he's married this woman and it's all controlling, and I see where this is going. Let's just 1, 2, 3, march to the beat and get to the end of this story.
Yep.
And then he crashes the car.
He drives off a mountain.
And at that point on, I'm like, all right, I'm into it.
Yeah.
And then his character completely changes. It's like, I'm crazy shooting my gun in the middle of the night at a cat I think I'm seeing. And
it gets fun the moment he drives off the mountain.
Yeah.
Like most things in life.
Because I had
metaphorically,
I checked out a bit before that. So
you think you know exactly what's going to happen. And ultimately, it is kind of what happens, but it happens in such a crazy way starting from the drive off the mountain.
All right, a couple of things.
So you just rolled your eyes and went, yeah, drive off a mountain.
We've all done that.
Oh, yeah.
No, I'm trying to figure out how to put this into words. It sounded, other than the fact that there was the Egyptian cat thing and some supernatural elements that they didn't explore well enough for me, it really was a story about watching 2 people in a failed marriage. And
Too close to home.
But the idea that, and I don't mean to be too horrifying, but there are many stories out there about people who have made the choice that their marriage is terrible and I'm going to kill both of us. I think I've read 4 stories in the Twin Cities in the last year where this has happened. It seemed like that's what the story was about. And I wanted the supernatural part of this more. I wanted something other than that.
You bring up a good point that it has some real life elements that could be distressing to listeners. However, from my point of view, the performances are so heightened and the melodrama is so huge in it that it takes me somewhere so far away from real life that over-the-topness puts this comfortable padding for me as a listener. He
Yeah,
drove off a mountain.
I brought a lot of my own baggage in with like, okay, the Egyptian princess lady, reincarnated goddess of cats, or whatever this is. Yeah, it was just
Heard it a million times, yeah.
But again, they could have had a lot more fun with that angle of it, and it seemed to live in a failed marriage scenario. It became Kramer versus Kramer.
that was not a comparison I was expecting.
I don't know. I've never seen Kramer versus
Kramer
Kramer.
versus
It's
cat
exactly
lady.
like this.
And I'm not a big fan of things like that. Like, I don't like everyday stories of real life people doing real life things.
Yeah, if you,
and that's what this
especially
focused on.
the top of this, if you just take it like, which character do I latch onto to root for? Like, nobody. In
Nobody.
here.
Because Jane, wow, Jane, again, can I go back to Jane? Get out. What are you doing? So 2 years later, he comes
forgiving.
back. I'm so mad at her. He comes back, and you're like, yeah, let's try this again.
I've
What?
been waiting literally in this chair for 2 years for you to come back and get me.
And then he calls off the wedding. You're still going to stay there. And then, even better, is that while he's describing what he's done, you're staying in that room, like halfway through that story, like, I got to go. You know, like you're a nutbag and a jerk. Also, I'd like to point out that you just admitted to the doctor that, yes, no, it wasn't an accident. I killed her on purpose. Does he not have some kind of obligation to report that? I mean, he's really just put himself in prison, hasn't he?
It's the mysterious traveler. We don't know. He might be a doctor. He might be a priest. This might technically be
He's a
protected as
doctor.
I'm kidding. His doctoring abilities are a little blurry because
They're
sometimes
terrible.
he's a psychiatrist. Sometimes he's a medical doctor. I think he's
He
just
came up with some
a fraud.
horrible. Yeah, he's a horrible fraud. What you're going to do is you're going to get married tonight, right now. That's going to solve this.
I have this really easygoing friend who's a judge who's just like, well, okay.
Oh, who, by the way, I don't know if it's actor choice or what, either the actor himself or it was the choice, is drunk. Horrifyingly
Sounds
drunk.
like he's trying to play it as if he just woke up.
Yeah, well,
And-
wake up.
All these things you're describing as negatives, like, yeah, that's totally true, and I totally was loving that.
Oh, no, these are negatives. I mean, I think...
They aren't?
To me, and I think this is one difference, Eric doesn't enjoy the just over-the-top lunacy of a script as much as at least I do, and I think sometimes you do as well, whereas that's a pleasure in and of itself.
Yeah, it makes no sense, right?
Because I agree with Eric
depends.
up to when it starts to get crazy. The other thing is then when he shoots the cat he sees in his room, right? And then it's gone. And when he's recounting it to the mysterious traveler suggests to him, as if this is somehow more reassuring, that maybe you just fired the gun in your sleep.
Yeah. I wrote that
and
down,
it
too.
awakened you. You know, like, I don't know how being a somnambulist with an itchy trigger finger is somehow more reassuring than seeing your dead cat wife.
I mean, that would be its own whole episode of I'm someone who wakes up to the sound of my own gunfire.
It's a pretty effective alarm clock.
There's another moment where I just went, She says, a friend of mine saw you having lunch with what's-her-name. And he said, a friend? Who was it? The cat almost literally says, it was meow. Oh,
I
my
actually
God.
thought the cat vocalizations were better than some.
Sure. Sure.
I thought the
Doesn't
croc
save it.
or whoever it was who did it, and that we learned that from Ape Song. I think that's the name of actors who
Animal
specialize
specialists?
in animal noises.
Oh,
Because I
that's
still think it
right.
was an actor.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
No, they were punching a cat. You cannot get a cat to
No, I
meow.
thought it was recordings,
Oh,
like
I see,
doctored
I see.
recordings. Yes, I didn't think it was. They cast a cat who's sitting there on a stool.
Well, it would have made for a more interesting story.
Oh, the cat just whizzed on the script again.
Speaking of the cat, here's another moment. Wow, you just shot a cat in the head.
It's so horrible, but there's
It's
something
so horrible.
ridiculous about the in the head.
Shot
Like,
a cat in the head. All I could think
It's
is
like,
there
did he-
can't be a head left.
or it would tiniest gun, and it has this execution quality where he's like,
it's
"On your knees, cat."
The idea,
Look at your heart.
I can't imagine shooting a cat. Oh my God!
There's another one. Like there's
I know
this,
that
like
string. Like, how many cats are in this town?
Here's another moment. This is really nitpicky, but she's driving, and he says, okay, slide over. I'll drive. Two things. One, what do you mean slide over? So, in order for that to happen, now visualize this. She has to crawl over him while he goes to the driver's seat, right?
Sure.
Here's how it went. Slide over. Like there was no movement for that to happen.
I don't know why he couldn't have just been driving the car. The reason he wrote that because they want him to drive off the mountain, but why not make him the driver to begin with?
Or just help me.
Well, it's the theme, He's reclaiming power in the relationship.
Tim's actually right.
Look at you.
I think I pulled something.
Literally taking the wheel. But then
driving off the mountain.
Help me. Either I want to hear the noise of them crawling over each other, or I want to hear her get out of the car, walk around, and get in.
Would love to hear like 3 minutes of excuse me, just your knee is on.
I love Eric's like, I want to just get on to the supernatural stuff, and I want to hear an extended scene of trading places in a car.
I just don't know why you do that. Slide over. Anyway. All right.
Yeah, so in my head is we're in the middle of recording, got to that point, like, wait, she's driving. We got to, just writing a quick note, slide over.
I will say this. It's one thing I really love about Arthur and Cogan as a duo. When they have a good script, it's really good. Like, The Good Die Young, Behind the Locked Door. Mm-hmm. And when they're bad, they're deliciously bad. You know what I mean? Like, there's not a lot of middle ground, and so I find them endlessly entertaining. Right. But I can't think of many other shows that have such entertaining extremes. Mm-hmm. Good and bad. It's funny that... is it Chris? Yeah, Chris. Yes. It sounds like a hiss. He chides.
That's not on purpose.
Oh, it is in the second script, because that's something that's not in the first one. In the second version, they actually underscore it. She keeps saying, Chris, and the actor hits it really hard and even says, that name, she makes it sound like a hiss every time. That's right. That's why he's so angry. Okay. They don't underscore it in this one that way. But he is so disgusted that this woman suddenly has become vain and obsessive. Mm-hmm. But this is a guy who... dumped his girlfriend in seconds upon seeing this woman and married her for her looks, and then is upset because she's vain and obsessive.
Yep.
And did not see or speak to Jane from that moment.
At all. Yeah, nope.
He had to have known. If this doesn't work, she'll be there. I've known Jane for a while now.
I assume this is their marriage and relationship has been on again, off again for years. They've clearly been going out for quite a while, because at finishing school she had Chris's picture, which is where Rana saw her.
That was the pause button.
That was the other one in the second version when she meets him and she says, I woke up in the morning staring at your picture.
That's in this one too.
Is it in there?
Yeah.
And I went to bed staring at your picture. I've been staring at your picture, and now we finally meet. That was the other question.
Nice, weird
why
moment.
does she want him so bad? I needed a motivation for why she wanted him so bad.
I think that was it. That's why they put that picture in, that she just saw something that someone else had and had to have it.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I think that's it. Because this is working on those very shallow tropes. She's just the foreign beauty who just wants to possess things.
You control cats.
You're quite a catch. You don't have to...
Let alone going on tour and what kind of cat variety show you could do. You could do so much. You control cats. Why are you... wasting that
nobody
power?
Could be a supervillain.
She controls cats.
It hit a little close to home when they talked about how many cats she had.
Why, how many do you have?
5. Is that a nightmare of cats, as he describes it? And is that actually what the collective noun for cats is? A nightmare?
I have 2. I think that's the limit.
They can be a nightmare, yeah.
It's also a very weak attempt at the end of this by the Traveler to make us afraid of our own cats. At the end where he's like, wasn't that scary? Do you have a cat? Oh, like, yeah.
Do you want a cat? I have a lot of cats.
Here's a historical thing. I had never heard the Mutual tagline before.
That was the most terrifying thing I think we've heard in this entire podcast. This is Mutual.
It's second. Bromo Seltzer.
It is probably the Bromo Seltzer guy. And it's at the top, too, because he opens with, The Mysterious Traveler, really angry.
I had never heard the Mutual Network use that. So that was weird. I wonder if that was the only time and someone made a call and said, nope, no, hey, no.
Children are crying.
Stop, please.
Whose idea was that?
They just probably wanted something to distract from the script.
All right. Anybody got anything else to say? Otherwise, I'm throwing it to a vote. Tim.
This is not a classic. But I had a blast. Like I said, there was up to a certain point that I was just ready to throw in the towel, and then it went to Crazy Town, and I like Crazy Town.
Tim is actually the mayor of Crazy Town.
Yes, I am. I don't know if I would say this stands the test of time, just because this is not something a random friend says, I'd like to pass a half hour in a sort of fulfilling way. I'm like, maybe not this. But I do love it. I love it a lot.
Yeah, I don't think it stands the test of time. I think it's of historical interest just because it's super crazy, and we didn't really talk about it because we probably don't really need to, but like the weird connections between this and Catwife. This comparison of women and cats that seem to be a more popular thing in older fiction because it's not like a trope that has survived. But it is so much fun, like Tim says. I was happy to have a trip to Crazy Town with Tim because it is that fun bonkers episode of you're just sort of surprised at each new scene as it transpires.
Shot a cat in the head.
Shot a cat in the head. I will tell you this. As I'm listening to this and writing all this in notes and saying, yeah, no, I hate this, this is that, and all these things I've already said, this is the most positive thing I can say about it. I got really excited knowing that we get to discuss it.
Yes.
This is going to be fun for discussion, and that was the best thing about it, is me being able to lay into it.
All right, well, if you had a tiny cat-sized gun pointed at your head and had to choose to listen to this one again or Catwife, which one would you choose, Eric?
Catwife, because they don't shoot a cat in the head and make me visualize a cat being shot in the head. Oh, my God.
Tim, which do you prefer?
I think Catwife has more to it. I had to wait for it in Queen of Cats.
Catwife.
Yeah.
Definitely more substance.
That ain't saying much. All right, Tim, tell them stuff.
Please go visit GhoulishDelights.com. That is the home of this podcast. You can find our take on Catwife there if you'd like. You'll also find, I don't know, what are you looking for? What do you want?
Don't get weird, man.
I'm going Crazy Town. You can comment on various posts. You can link to our social media and leave us messages. You can make requests of episodes you'd like us to listen to, like this, that we will say nice things about or rude things about. We'll just say whatever enters our head.
Yeah, you can also go to patreon.com/themorals if you want to support this podcast to help us say more rude things about your favorite old-time radio shows. Then give us some money. You can also go to iTunes, write us a review, tell us how much you like this podcast or that you don't. That's fair. We can't stop you. You can also go to Facebook and please join our discussion group, the Mysterious Old Radio Listening Group, and you can talk to other listeners and we can dig a little deeper into some of these episodes online.
And speaking of our live shows, if you're in the area of the Twin Cities in Minnesota, please look it up and see if we're performing. We do live recreations of our theater company version of the Mysterious Old Radio Listening Society of old-time radio shows. Sometimes the classics, sometimes not. However, we will not be doing this one. Oh, maybe we will. Maybe we will.
Cut to 3 years from now.
What's coming up next?
Up next, we're going to be listening to an episode of The Price of Fear entitled The Man Who Hated Scenes.
Until then...
Look out! Slide over. I'll drive.
Very well, Chris.
This is Mutual.